Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Zion Experience, or TZE as we call it. I'm running solo today, and we've got a really special guest that we're going to get into a topic that's just near and dear to me and my journey through my careers is leadership in business. And we've got one of my favorite people that I've met in the last couple of years, Kelly Renz, and I'll introduce her in her bio in a little bit. But if you're a returning subscriber, we welcome you back. Thank you for joining in. If you're a new listener, then we would ask you to go out and to subscribe, whether you're on YouTube right now or Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to your podcast. But we're excited to bring you this every other week. And we have some really interesting people, some of the best people in the industry. And that's really what the Zion Experience is about, is bringing people on to just give us different perspectives in life. We talk to friends, we talk to partners, we talk to customers, and today we're going to talk to a business coach and who's a partner and a friend. So with that, let me introduce. I'm your host, Jimmy Shaw. Jordan's out enjoying some much needed, much deserved family time, vacation. I believe they're in South Carolina somewhere. They're in Florida for the first time since his youngest, Levi, has been on this earth, as he told me last week. So they're at the beach enjoying some family time, and I'm running solo, but I think we're going to handle it okay. So with that, let me lead in. I'm going to read you. It's really from Kelly's voice. It's her LinkedIn bio, and we just thought it was an awesome intro that you could listen to. So I'm going to read it, and it says, over a 25-plus year career, I have never been one to conform to conventional business practices. My innate desire to challenge the status quo and a relentless drive for better results influences how I approach my work. One of my former CEOs would say I could see around corners, and I believe that is possible. There is an art and a science to running a business, and I subscribe to building accountability to achieve results. I became a certified Pinnacle business guy because I enjoy working with entrepreneurs to get more of what they want from their businesses. As guides, we provide the foundation, tools, and teaching for leadership teams to reach their pinnacle of their unique mountain. After all, the best leaders didn't fall on top of their mountain. It was a climb. So this goes into my guest, Kelly Renz, who's got a 25-plus year career. It just this really only speaks to this chapter of your career. So, Kelly, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful to be invited. And, I love spending time with some of my favorite people from Zion. So thank you.
Yeah. Kelly just recently moved into a house. So this is her first day back into the office. And Kelly was sharing pre-show that she's glad to be here instead of unpacking boxes. And that led to a whole conversation of I may never move again. And Jake, Georgia Jake, as we call him, who helps us with the podcast show, is moving into his new apartment, recent graduate of Georgia. And Kelly's moving into, what house is this, Kelly? You've told me.
I don't know. It's like number 11. So we're good. But I can't promise. I have to go on record here. I can't promise it's the last move.
her husband, who also works in the same area with her, is asked to promise that this is the last one. And Kelly's said, I can't promise. So
I can't say that on a recording either, right?
That's right.
That's evidence.
Hey, your truth is your truth, right? So we talked a little bit about your Pinnacle, Kelly, and I want to spend some time with it just because I'm a big proponent of leadership, of coaching, of strategy, of Pinnacle and what it stands for. And we obviously engaged you all in Zion, but tell us a little bit more. You got 25 years. I didn't really flesh out your entire bio. So
yeah.
What other experiences have you had, and just what maybe was the most formative of the Kelly of 2024? What got you here?
We all have those moments in our career that are kind of pivotal, that some are expected, some are unexpected. And since we were talking with Georgia Jake just a minute ago about him joining the workforce after college, I would say one of the most formative opportunities I had was coming right out of school. And I was hired by a family-owned business. It was a IT consulting and staff augmentation company back in the 90s. And when I joined that group, there were two brothers that owned the business. One ran the Milwaukee office, one ran the Chicago, Tulsa, and Dallas offices. And during the time I was there, that organization, we watched it go through a buyout of one of the brothers. So I got a really good sense of kind of the family dynamics of business right off the bat. And in the 4 years I was there after that, we went public as well. So I felt like those first 4 years, I was heading up their HR team and then administration by the time I left. Those 4 years were like dog years of learning. I don't know if you've ever had those jobs where you're like 1 year counts like 7. So I felt like I had this best opportunity to learn so much in the time I was there. So I caught the bug of entrepreneurialism there, right? So business owner, I loved working in the complexities of family business. And it's where I did a lot of things I never thought I would do from an education perspective. I thought I was long time ago, Jimmy, and this is over probably another conversation. I thought I might be a pharmacist someday. Very glad for the path I've taken. But when I landed with this company called SPR, they gave me like every opportunity. And John Filio, who will probably listen to this episode, is one of my favorite mentors of all time, doesn't even remember 2 pivotal things that he did for me. Like there are those moments in our lives where we're like, this changed me. And he's like, yeah, I don't remember that. So we have those moments as leaders. We don't know. We've affected somebody that we don't even realize. But he was the one before we had the Google, would challenge me to be, really about being resourceful and figuring things out. So I had so much fun, Jimmy. That was the start of the career. And after that, I knew I just wanted to be in these high growth, fast-paced businesses, solving big problems, and working with really good people, having fun doing it. And so I was fortunate. I landed in a good place right off the bat. So I would say that was one of the most formative early parts of the career, the 20-something Kelly.
Yeah. Awesome. Where did you go after that? You've had I think your background's pretty interesting. So
yeah. Well, after that, so I totally subscribed to relocating a little bit and trying out living in a couple different areas. So I was in
11 houses.
Yeah, 11 houses. That's how this happens. And then I was in Chicago, and then I went up to the Green Bay, Wisconsin area, and then ended up back in Milwaukee. We kind of joke that Milwaukee and some parts of Wisconsin are like a black hole. They pull you back in. Well, after I left SPR, then I was really I had really found that I enjoyed the high tech space. I enjoyed software development, SaaS-based organizations, just that technology company vibe, largely because of the cultures. So the people there were fantastic. So I ended up with a couple of different tech companies. One of them I was brought on specifically because we were getting ready to sell it. So I developed a little bit of a knack for being able to come into organizations, and this was a policy administration company. So think of that their clients were big insurance companies, and the software they developed was the backbone of how they run policies and do quotes and all those good things that we love about insurance. Doesn't sound exciting. It's actually quite interesting. And so I caught a bug of M&A there because we were owned by private equity. And that was where I had some of my first experiences buying and selling companies. And with it, really recognizing how to preserve the culture, which was super important, then getting it prepared to sell at the same time. So how do you maximize the value? So looking at, not sacrificing the people and culture elements while driving really good efficiencies in the business became kind of this really neat area that I really think became a cornerstone of my leadership principles early on. And then after that, I've done 45 M&A deals, either on the buy or sell side over my career. And so it was there that I was really able to learn what not to do, which is a big part of leadership, right? Learning what not to do. We only grow through our mistakes, but then learning what to do and finding a little niche in the area of M&A. So that was another big catalyst in my career. And then I stayed with having M&A or corporate strategy as an accountability for the next probably 15 years after that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, lots of fun.
Which leads you to InVantage. And
yes.
Yeah, a little bit about InVantage, and just you told us a little of the journey of how you got there into it, but what for the listeners, just what is InVantage and what's this chapter, this season of Kelly's life look like?
Yeah, I always refer to InVantage, which is the company I founded in 2020, as my encore career. It's kind of the part that comes after you've done a lot of other things, and you get to really make it exactly what you love. So after the exit of my last company in 2020, I knew that I was probably not going to go back into a more traditional corporate role at that point. I had been, like I said, at that time, it was almost 20 years, growing companies, changing them, helping them get them in a position to either be capitalized or significantly grow. And I'm like, you know what? I think I want to take the learnings that I had as a business owner and as a business leader, and really bring that to other entrepreneurs. Probably like you, I was part of some CEO roundtables and groups, peer groups that really were important to me at that time around. It's kind of nice to have a little mini board of directors with these people. And I became kind of this niche person on business operating systems, which is what Pinnacle is all about, is, how do you run your business with an operating system and predictability? Well, I had run my last company that I exited in 2020 on an operating system. I loved it so much. I was the one that in these CEO groups, everybody would call and say, hey, how do you do this? How do you do this? And I'm like, why don't I just do this for a living? I love it so much. Apparently they think I'm good at it. This is fun. And hence InVantage really became the idea of when I knew we were going to be exiting the last business, which was fantastic, that this is where I wanted to be. So now we work with organizations like ZSG and others that are really looking to, I would say, provocatively and fun and with pretty big ambition, accomplish things they never thought they could. And what an awesome place to be, is to work with people who think big and act even bigger.
Right.
So InVantage was formed in that, and now we've got a team of coaches and support staff that help our clients achieve those big, hairy, audacious goals, or the BHAGs as we call them.
Right. Which brings us to where we met, and that I'm going back. My memory is not my best thing in life, but I know it was in I think it was late 2023 quarter. It was either quarter three. It's about a year ago or a little less than a year ago we met, and we started Pinnacle. Zion did, and I think our kickoff, our first base camp, to use the language, was in December, and and then we just recently graduated from base camp, and I think we've got a meeting later this week. We got a little meeting later this week, but it's been a good journey. Do you want to talk about like how we met? I think that's important. Sure. Yeah.
I think it's obviously good people know other good people. One of our core values at InVantage is, we call it benevolent connectors of people. And we really only take business on referral at this point. We're fortunate to have a nice full practice. So our mutual friends at Steel Solutions created a connection for us. So thanks to Kevin O'Neill and team there, who I'd been working with, almost 3 years at that point already. And we had gone through some really great times there as well. And they completed an acquisition and all sorts of things. And so that led us to getting connected. And I was really happy with your vision for the company. I loved hearing the team's passion about your people. I will tell you that that's a thing I listen for really, really close. For me to be a good culture match as a coach, and for the clients that I work with to really gel well, because chemistry is a lot of the relationship we have, right? Is if they have to care about their people, and you guys had that in spades. So that's how we got connected, by one company that cares about their people very much to another. So it was speaking my language. Yeah.
And it was I think you've got a pretty diverse client base of small businesses, big businesses. Steel Solutions is quite a big business, and by just terms of compared to us in terms of people that work there and just what they do. And but we're in really a little different market in supply chain, which are very focused. They're a provider, an OEM, and we are more of a systems integrator that takes their products and build really cool creative solutions out of it and work. But it's a different industry. It's a really big, it's a broad industry, but there's a lot of learnings. I think you've got another systems integrator and another referral base of some people in Iowa, and they've got multiple offices now, but just good people, the Howard family and the folks over at RMH. And I think you just recently kicked off base camp.
Yep.
One or probably on two with them now, but it's a unique industry. And so we were glad to find you. We had been on a journey, just for our listeners, of there's multiple varieties and flavors of business operating systems. One that most or some listeners may have heard of was EOS. We were looking into EOS at a suggestion of another couple companies, and we had interviewed, and just like you said, we had interviewed people, and it's so important that who you work with, because it is challenging. It's a climb. It's called a climb for a reason.
Right.
You tell people a lot, and other strategy people we've worked with or I've worked with over the years, is you use a different part of your brain when you're going through this, and you're there for that to form what part, what needs to change, what is in the best interest strategically, and to do the things that are not typical motor skills or cognitive skills that you have as your leadership team is surrounded. So it's heavy work. It's hard work. It's much less physical work, and it's a lot of mental fatigue. You always come out, you see it, and you wouldn't think it, but like you're just working different sides of your brain. So we evaluated EOS. We looked into a couple others. It was important for us. We weren't even quite 2 years into the journey. And we had come from our previous place that we'd worked at. We'd seen some of the benefits of strategy and just knowing how you can get the team involved, and what we desire and the vision that we have for Zion 10 years from now. We know it's bigger than us. We know it's bigger than some of our capabilities as they exist today, to put in the foundational items, to put it on paper, to indoctrinate, and to really build that good foundation that we can get our team more involved. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest lesson I took away from strategy is it gets the enterprise, whatever your enterprise looks like, big or small, it gets the enterprise aligned on words. It gets them aligned on vision. It gets them aligned on where you're going, and you get a common set of tools, whatever those tools are, that allow you to accomplish and set. Because I'm an engineer, and we've talked about like the fundamentals of it are all the same. There's 10 core principles of every strategic model that's out there. You got to go. How do you work back to it? What's the big go? How do you work it into smaller goals? How do those turn into action items? How are you focused on it? What metrics say you're good or bad on them? And, how do you put people in the right seats and have the right accountabilities? And you do, but we found to be value in somebody that just doesn't see it from our lens every day. That can see our team and tell us words and tell us different ideas that we listen to and we hear differently. So it's been a good journey for that. We found we didn't do a whole lot of interviews, but we knew pretty much when we met you, we were looking like Kelly's our person. We put a lot of stock in good people like Steel Solutions and Kevin O'Neill, and just couldn't say enough good about you. And just, I know the journey they've been on because I've watched it over the last 4+ years, and just the phenomenal growth they've had, and the way they've rebranded some of their business, and just, but they're people first. And we know, how they were, and they think a lot like us. Kevin serves on our external advisory board. We've surrounded ourselves. I got a meeting next week with our external advisory board, because like you said, I think it's always good to hear other perspectives, and just times to verbalize what you're thinking, and have other really smart people that you respect say, that's a good idea, or you may need to reconsider that. So we knew very quickly it was you, Kelly, and we've been on the journey with you, and it's been a journey. I don't think we've quite got our team as involved yet as we will eventually. We're right at the point of rolling out core values. We've done a lot of the prep work, and basically we're getting ready for the climb, and it's going to accelerate from this point forward, I think. But
it does. Remember, I've said, you've got to become Yoda before you can teach the Jedi. We've talked about that a little bit. So you guys you're becoming Yoda, and you're going to be ready to share that. But you've been on that mastery journey, and you guys are quick studies. as you know. So that'll only aid your rollout more as we go. So it's a fun journey to watch.
We've done some personality tests, and we've got a special group. That's our coaches. That's a conversation for another day, but we're not short on opinions. We're all very confident, and but we make it work. It's like a marriage. It's any company that tells you they never go through struggles or have ups and downs. They're lying. You will. But it's how you work through those. It's how you build trust around it. It's how you move roadblocks, and just I'm thankful to work with the people that I work with, and we've accomplished quite a bit in 2.5 years, and put a team around us it's at the end of the day, it's not us. We may start the spinning of the flywheel, but at the end of the day, it's our employees and our partners and our customers that make it that ultimately make it go. And we're very in tune with that. We're very aware of that.
You started this at the right point in your juncture of the business. When you're a couple of years in, it's easy. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier. It's just the right time to start establishing some of these best practices. And when I work with companies that are all different stages of their life cycle. And I've got a couple startups that I've worked with, and I've got some that have been. The longest was 95-year-old company. With you putting these practices in place now, like you said, creating the common language, the tools and whatnot, it creates scaling so much easier. And, when you accelerate your growth as you have been, and you start bringing even more people on, you'll find the onboarding experience and the assimilation and kind of coming along for people so much better. So you're just really creating a great employee experience by giving them this foundation. They just don't know it quite yet. It's coming, but it's the right time to do it. I can't tell you, I don't have a client that I've worked with that has come to me and said, you know what, we could have waited to do this 3 or 4 more years. A lot of them are like, oh my gosh, if we had done this 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 5 years ago, life would already be easier by now. So I applaud the fact that you made the strategic investment and decision to level the team up and work with somebody outside your inner circle. That's important, right? To have somebody who can hold up the mirror to us once in a while. And you guys have been an absolute joy and a lot of fun to work with. And that's part of it too. I don't do this just because it's all serious. It's also we got to have a good time. We'd spend way too much time working not to enjoy it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so let's spend a little time of your clients. Like, somebody might be listening to this and saying they're interested in what is an operating system. Mm-hmm. Where would you guide someone? What's your quick elevator speech? Here's Pinnacle and here's why you should use it. Yeah. They'll probably get bits and pieces of that through it, but ultimately, who's an ideal? At what stage is ideal for a business? Is it any? And just what are some of the benefits a company could expect from an operating system like Pinnacle?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, when people haven't heard the language of a business operating system, I always say it's not a technology system. It's not an ERP, right? It's really the set of tools and processes that harness what we call the human energy of the business. That's really what it is how do you organize the business to run most efficiently and effectively? And we focus on what we call the 5 principles, right? So we look at the people elements of a business. Do you have right people in the right seats? Got to have both. Do we have an organizational structure that supports the business where people are clearly accountable? They know what they're on the hook for accomplishing. And how do we measure what success and good looks like? We look at the playbooks component of businesses. Playbooks are the processes, the documented programs and approaches to how we do the right thing each and every time. Helps us define what does good look like. We've got purpose, right? Why do we exist? Purpose, where are we headed? What's our strategic outlook? Why do we come and do this every day is the purpose element. Then we look at our performance. So how do we know we're winning? We've heard the language, right? How do you know you won your day, your week, your month? What does that look like? And then lastly, at the corner, in the center of all that is, of course, profits, right? Profits are the wind in the business. They're the energy that lets you fuel the growth. So we focus tools and processes around that whole model. The real net of it is it really teaches a leadership team how to be incredibly cohesive and on the same page. We always talk about same pageness in what we do. Speaking the same language, being very accountable and transparent to results. Nobody can hide in an operating system. It exposes a lot of the business, and then lastly, creates real intentional business planning. So, business can happen by accident. It does. It really does. Things will happen, but this is really about creating a destiny of where you want to go and being really crystal clear on how you're going to get there. So that's really what an operating system does, is it teaches those business concepts that a lot of educations don't, right? It's kind of, you can either do it the school of hard knocks and experience, or an operating system really accelerates a lot of how to run a business the best way possible. And the cool part of it is it can still fit your needs, right? Like if there's something really important to you, it can fit into the model. So if you've got like a really important process or program or whatnot, it's not rigid either. Some of the operating systems out there can be pretty rigid. Pinnacle is not. It's called open source by nature, meaning we pull in whatever tools out of our toolkit that you need right now. So, that's the operating system part of it. The kinds of organizations we work with, Jimmy, are I'm going to hit the kind of the psychographic and kind of demographic first of it. So first of all, it's got to be an organization that it can be really any size. I have clients that are 1.5 million in revenue in the startup phase. I've got another one just shy of $1 billion. And so that's a pretty big range. So what I look at is, are they a group that's willing to learn? We always say there's no slouches that come into our session room. These are people who are ambitious with pretty lofty goals and visions of where they want to go. They have to be humble enough to learn. They have to be willing to put the work in. To your earlier point, we're exercising some new muscles. So it's not the easy button. The easy button doesn't usually get you where you want to go. It's the hard work button that ultimately fuels the growth and the opportunity, and ultimately you live a better life as a result of it. So we look more for the clients that are that kind of psychographic. We work across different industries. Probably about 60% of our business is in the manufacturing area. So we look for organizations that are closely held, privately held, family-owned businesses. But we also do work with private equity firms as well. I work with two specifically very, very actively on a regular basis, where they'll drop us in when they're taking on a new portfolio company, but they have a very clear vision of, they've got an exit strategy they want to achieve, and they need some help, getting it fine-tuned. So we work with manufacturers, we work in services, we work with other consulting groups. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to that, the industry aspect. So that's who, so I usually will say, I just actually met a new client maybe about a month and a half ago on an airplane. And it was the head of a healthcare group. And he was kind of lamenting flying back home after having to commute to Philly all the time, from Milwaukee to Philly. And he said, business just isn't fun anymore. It got really hard after, COVID took what we had in our space. It's like, and now I just feel like we're completely depleted, and anything that we used to do doesn't work anymore. And I said, well, that's probably because the world has changed enough and your business has changed enough, but maybe the infrastructure hasn't. And it just sparked a really neat conversation. So it can be anywhere.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest reasons for anybody listening that we ultimately decided Pinnacle was first and foremost, it was, I don't know what you'd call it. I don't have the good words like you've got, Kelly, but we needed the right coach. So we feel like we found the right coach. It was important to me and the other coaches. We call ourselves coaches as part of the leadership team at Zion. We had to have somebody that understood our personalities, because everybody thinks they're unique, and that's okay. And we probably are a little different unique. We got 5 pretty talented executive people that frankly any combination of it could probably run a similar size business that we've got. So we've got a lot of we are a little unique in that, and we're probably a little stubborn in the fact we told Kelly, like, we don't want to always follow the rules. That's probably a big thing, but we needed the ability to stretch. We needed the ability to say, when we started Zion, we sat down a lot with what we knew, and we laid out a vision, mission, values, and we put in place certain tools, and we set up goals and targets. We just happened to hit them in 16 months instead of 60 months. And so it accelerated our path of where we were going, and we understood the value of going through this. It's like exercising. Nobody wants to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go exercise. I run a lot. Every time I run, I wonder why I'm running. But at the end of the run, I know that, it's done. It's made me better for what my intentions are, which, was to get healthier, to have a stronger heart so I can stay with my kids. You go back to purpose and be there. So we had accelerated growth, but we knew we needed some flexibility in how we were approaching. And then I think the third thing for us was really that it doesn't stop. There's not a definitive, you've started and you've stopped. And some of these other programs, there are a lot of good programs. I would encourage people to find the program that works for you and to find the coach that works for you. And the journey is more important sometimes than the process to me. Is you've got to find what works for you, and every company is going to be a little different, but the outcome's the outcome. If you want to get better, I think you hit that really well on. You got to have a group that's willing to learn, that's humble enough to admit they got to change, that's eager to put in the effort or willing to put in the effort, and then it's really about, okay, what are they good people? Do they take care of your people? So I think you summed it up really well. But for us, the flexibility and the ability to follow us through our journey, because our journey is not going to stop. I mean, I'm 26 plus years in business. I'm learning as much now as I knew at the beginning of my career. And part of that's being a lifelong learner, but you've got to be able to do those things. And your team is worthy and deserving of that. So we always say a lot of times when I'm doing something really hard with a team, or with something like strategy, I always try to come back. It's like, it's your purpose. Why are you doing it? And the ultimate goal is to have a sustainable business. And our purpose is to touch the life and to positively impact of every life that we touch. Yeah. And that starts with our team. It starts with our business partners, and then it extends to our customers. So absolutely. I think you did a nice job. What companies really excel? Like in yours, like what companies have excelled the most under the business operating system?
Yeah. So there's I think there's a couple themes in that. So the first is, we spend a lot of time in the operating system environment creating the strategic plan where people are going, and we will say this: make your plan, but don't fall in love with your plan. Yeah. Right. So it's all about, to your point, that little bit of flexibility. I mean, business climate changes fast, and you've got to be able to have enough infrastructure in your operating system to be able to navigate. Let's say we hit a massive recession, right? We got to be able to pivot and do something different. And so planning with the ability to know when to change, I would say, is a really, really key thing. Because, the leaders that are like so locked in and rigid on where they're headed and are kind of ignoring those warning signs along the way, there's bells and whistles going off and the red lights are flashing and they're like, no, this is our plan. I get why some people get really attached to that, but the best leaders and the companies that tend to thrive recognize that strategy is not a straight line. It's going to be a little meandering. Sometimes we'll take a little step back to take a step forward. So I would say that's one thing we look for, and what we see in successful companies is they'll make their plan but not fall in love with their plan. The other is to have the leadership team absolutely focused on having right people in the right seats. Talent is, at the end of the day, the real differentiator anybody can have, because products can be replicated, processes can be replicated. Human beings, while people will say we're replaceable, it's hard to replicate. Exactly. And so the companies that will require right people, so when we say that, we're talking about people who live the core values or behave in a way that's consistent with what we accept, and right seats are able to perform the duties of the job and really contribute in a meaningful way. They will not sacrifice that. Leadership teams that are successful will not sacrifice and accept wrong people or wrong seats anywhere in their organization. So they're constantly looking at making sure that they invest in the right talent, and they're usually the tougher interviews, and they'll spend the time developing their people and coaching them and set really high expectations in a bar. And that is the only differentiator they really can have, because the company down the street can go start doing the same work you do, but people, that's hard to replicate. So those are the two things I would say: focus on flexible strategy and focus on your people. And you're probably already, 50% of where you need to get to.
I think that's great advice. A flexible strategy and having the right people in the right seats and on the right bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love all that.
Right?
Yeah.
I
know as a leader,
that's one of the better principles that we've heard out of different books. And it seems so simple. That's the thing about strategy and just people. And it's not complicated, but we as people, we as humans, we make things super complicated.
Sure we can.
And then the inability to change and pivot, you do fall in love with where you're at. And I think it's because it's the what's the best way? You become conditioned to what's comfortable sometimes.
Oh, sure.
And you have to always be in a position where you're uncomfortable and you're going after it. And whether that's in our industry, we can't settle in. We're only as good as the 6 to 18 months of jobs and backlog that we've got in front of us. And so it's super important for our industry that we have these things in place, because we know all the different, we go as the economy goes. And so it's been really, I could go down that rabbit hole a long time, but flexibility and strategy and just having the right people. Yeah.
If you're not a little uncomfortable, Jimmy, you're probably not growing either. Right. So that's part of that, right? We gotta shake that.
I hope one day when I'm retired, I'm comfortable, but I'm not going to be running a business at that point. So
I don't know.
If you're in a leadership position and you're too comfortable, then you aren't growing.
Yeah.
Or good for you. You've built a business model that's just, it's magical at this place in time, but
which is fun, a fun short stop to be in. So absolutely. Absolutely.
And I always have thought, like, if you're doing work that's worth doing, it's one of my personal mission statements. Like, if you're doing work that's worth doing, if you have that purpose, it's easy to show up and it's easy to put in the work and it's easy to get better and it's easy, but you got to you got to have that foundational of like, why are you in business? Why are you doing it? And I, at this point in my career, I've worked for someone else for so long. I've always had that work ethic to get there. But at this point, it's like, there's a different purpose for it.
Yeah.
It comes with new stresses, new challenges. You feel the burden of, like, I feel a big responsibility to have a business that's sustainable for anybody that we bring on and for the customers that we service. But it's good. Well, thank you for all that. I know we're getting closer towards the end here, but I always like to ask things like this, Kelly, like what books have you read, and just what advice? You're always so good. You got good advice. You got good words you use that resonate in terms of sayings, but what are maybe some tools that are out there that you would, an aspiring leaders listening to this, they want to go to the next level. They want to make an impression on their executive team, or maybe they have a small business. What tools, and then what books? Are there any books or resources? Where would you guide people towards?
I'll go with one of my favorites, because I'm a total geek, right? I read a ton. And so my latest favorite is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. And so first of all, if you like audiobooks, it's totally one of the best audiobooks to listen to, but it's about unreasonable hospitality and truly how you exceed the expectations of your customers. And he tells an incredible story, first about being absolutely obsessed with being different. And you remember from our conversation we had at a seminar you attended, people don't know better, they know different. And that book is all about how do you differentiate yourself. So right now, hot topic, we're teaching it to a lot of our clients. That's one of the tools. So if you're wondering how to really set yourself apart, that's the one that I would recommend, is the summer reading you've got to do right now. So
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes. Unreasonable, bright yellow book. Can't miss it. Will Guidara is the one of the number one Vistage speakers right now. And he's got a great TED Talk or two out there over it. So a lot of fun. So that's my summer recommendation reading. Gotcha.
Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. There's also lots of other books, Jimmy, but of course I would say I'd be remiss if you don't go read the Pinnacle Principles book. That one helps kind of organize the thoughts in a simple way of 15 core tools that every business needs. So that one I would be remiss if I didn't mention. And another one for those that are visionary leaders, if you're really trying to bring this idea to light and you're trying to get other people in your organization to kind of see what you see, Cameron Herold's Vivid Vision, pretty short book, but it's a model about getting your ideas of your vision for the company from here and creating an incredibly vivid story around your purpose and your core values and why you exist. So we've got a couple of clients who are actually implementing their own vivid visions right now because they're visionaries of the company. The leaders just want people to understand the passion of which it came from. So those are 3 good recommendations for the summer.
Gotcha. Cool. And then what would you maybe, I'm dialed into, you've had a lot of success as a female entrepreneur. We've got several females, young females, super talented. And we've got, obviously, Kathy's part of our leadership team. From a female perspective, like what maybe some leadership lessons you've learned that you would pass along to some of our listeners?
Yeah. The first is be a gap filler. We talk about being willing through your career to proactively identify gaps that need filling in the organization. So don't always wait to be invited. Go identify, be proactive. So that's the one thing, is be a gap filler. Gap filling is an incredible place to be because it's usually the gaps are where there are connections not being made in a company. So be a gap filler. The other is get comfortable with being who you really are. Don't try to be somebody else. What is the saying? Don't be somebody else. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. You've got to really kind of know what you stand for earlier in your career. Just understand kind of what kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to show up? Write it down. Be super clear. What is your intentional self? And then I would say one of the last things, because I get to spend a lot of time with, I teach at a university here in Wisconsin as well. So I get to work with students of all different ages in that area, is take some chances in your career. It doesn't have to be that straight line from A to Z. Go try some new things. You never know, what you might find you want to do. I've got friends who are pharmacists. I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. Now I'm a business coach. Try to figure that one out, right? Go take some chances and do something a little different. Try things before you lock yourself in forever.
I think that's really sound advice, really, whether you're a female in the business world or a male or whatever. It's just good advice in general. So the WNBA commissioner, and her name's escaping me. I listened to a podcast with her earlier this week, and she talked about her journey at Deloitte and how she's done. And she mentioned it similar. I don't think she used the same words, but it's like, go do the job that nobody else wants to do, and constantly go to your boss and ask for a new challenge. It don't get stale. Find a gap, fill it. And I think that's really great advice, Kelly. Well, we're near our end. I always pick a fun question. I'm looking at my list of fun questions, and let me see which one. You already spoke of, since we're in the coach theme and leadership, is our, in business is our topic. What about the best mentor you've ever had? I think you mentioned his name, and just why.
Yeah. So John Felia was a good one. I'm going to bring another one into this because I'm fortunate to have had a number of them. So I'm calling Tony Rice out in Indianapolis by name here. He was a CEO I worked for. Oh gosh, we started working together maybe 15 years ago or so. Just he had a level of integrity and honesty and transparency in the way he would deal with people. We would joke that he could call the baby ugly. It was okay. And he made it sound nice. But he did it in a really caring, thoughtful way. And he always pushed a little harder. He always knew you could do a little more, a little better, a little different. And by believing in the teams that we had, and we went through a lot as a team under his leadership. We were a leadership team that was a global business getting ready to sell. It was a very challenging situation. And he kept, just kind of making you want to level up for him a little bit more because he would believe in you. I remember the first maybe month I was a CEO on my own, I called him up and I was driving back from a client, and I had my first experience where one of my team members, I was just talking, how you ideate, right, Jimmy? You kind of think sometimes you're just thinking out loud, and they took it as direction and went and did something that really probably didn't really want them to do. It was just kind of that one of my many bad ideas before we get to a good one. I remember calling him and I'm like, Tony, they actually did what I said and I didn't want them to. And he said, that's because you weren't clear. And it's just he can bring these little clarity things. He goes, they need to know, is it the idea, Kelly, or is it the direction, Kelly? You've got to be clear and intentional. So just one little story I still remember. He's like, that's because you weren't clear. And he brought that to us. So to this day, I still get a chance, the pleasure to work with him. off and on as well. So
That's
thank you for
great.
letting me
Kelly,
talk about him.
we really enjoyed having you as a guest. Thank you. The time we've blown through 45 minutes. Jake sent me the text the chat on the side that I'm at time.
The hook is going to come soon, Jimmy.
That's right. I hope if people have met, you never know, the attention span of people, myself included, these days is like 45 minutes is a long time to hear, but I think this is really good quality. We'll present it as such, and I think people can really some good tidbits. So,
well, thank you for having me.
We're glad to be involved with you. Thank you for what you do for Zion, and we appreciate you making some time. I know you're busy, and thank you for making some time for us. And hope you enjoyed the episode. And any closing thoughts or remarks? Or
thank you for having me, and I can't wait to see where you go on this journey with us. So we're looking forward to seeing what's ahead for ZSG.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.